students. Today we'll be looking into the final topic of your Unit 4 of Warehouse and Transportation, and this topic is titled as Reverse Logistics. It's a very important topic, especially in the new age digital world. Modern advanced technologies that are put to use for mass production and newer innovations. Why is this so relevant in today's economy is what we will be studying. But before that, we will look into what has been recently happening around the world and also in India. You have been witness or you have read in the newspapers and listened to TV news where during the monsoon season there is a lot of floods, especially with heavy rains. There is inundation, choked sewage, and this is going on year. Lot of lives are lost. Some people drown in the floods. Many shops, many houses are destroyed, and there's a very big loss to economy. Well, why is this happening? If you look at the consumption patterns in the world, global consumption of our product and services has increased drastically. Well, there are various reasons. One is the demand side, where incomes have increased. Per capita income of every country has increased. In fact, recently we also found that a country like Bangladesh has a very encouraging per capita income, where the lifestyles and the standard of living of those people in the country has improved. And countries like China and India, you find people buying more and more stuff year on year and trying to either decorate house or for self-consumption. Now, during all this process, as consumption increases, that means demand has increased. And because of increase in the demand, the companies cater to this demand through mass productions. And with this mass production comes mass products in the market, and it comes to your homes. After usage of the product, we finally dispose it, and this disposing of the product creates landfills. And this is one of the key problems that the world is facing. And because of the landfills, whenever there are rains and monsoon season, the waste material gets choked in the sewers, the sewage system, and the water does not flow through the drainage system. It doesn't reach the sea, including sea water is also extremely polluted. Because of these reasons, there are a lot of initiatives being taken around the world. So let us look at these initiatives. Before that, let's understand the scenario that the world is facing with figures, and because figures are always a great insight into the real problems facing the society or the world or the issue at hand. Worldwide product returns are worth almost $1 trillion annually, and they have become very common with the growth of e-commerce. Because of ease of purchase of the goods and ease of making payment, people are buying more, and because of this, any problem with the product, they return the product, or after the usage, they dispose the product, and this has been a major cause of the concern. At the same time, let us look at what's happening in India. In urban areas, India generates more than 62 million tons of municipal solid waste annually. And this is a figure given by Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India, way back in 2016. Now, students, we all know we are in 2022. Despite of COVID, however, consumption may have dropped down, but the figure here is alarming. 62 million tons of municipal solid waste is generated in this country annually. Now, the definition of municipal solid waste might be known by a few people. For some students, it may be a new. We will shortly define what constitutes a municipal solid waste. Now, if you look at the figures in terms of plastic waste, where around the world every country has got this as their key concerns, and one of the major reasons why there is degradation of environment is the plastic waste. And let's see how India fares here. India in 2019 has produced more than 6 lakh tons of plastic waste. And of this 6 lakh tons, 43% are packing waste. That means plastic used for packaging the material. And the good news is almost 60% of this waste is going for recycling. That means the sad part is 40% still remains in the landfills around us, in the garbage bins. And that is enough to cause so much of floods and so much of economic upheavals because of this sheer 40%. Now, world leaders have met in several forums to discuss the problems generated through plastic waste and also other kind of waste. And one of the major meeting happened in France in 2015, and this came to be known as Paris Agreement. So Paris Agreement is nothing but an international treaty on climate change. And basically in this agreement, every country participated and signed a declaration that in their own country they will bring about better production and consumption patterns such that it gives very less burden on the environment, and the forest, the water bodies and the living conditions of people can be improved or protected. So Paris Agreement in 2015, it called for a transformation of production and consumption patterns with a key objective to see that the global temperatures do not rise. Now, for this reason, many of the world leaders, that is the governments on each of the country, are giving very special focus on what we call as circular economy. The coming few slides will discuss about this concept known as circular economy, and later on we will see how circular economy is associated with our topic of interest, that is reverse logistics. So shifting the process of production and consumption to a circular economy is very important to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Change Agreement. All these agreements and goals are set by international bodies so that humans live a better life, and also the future generation, which includes human beings and flora and fauna, the animals, the forest, all live conducively and prosper. So land degradation, greenhouse gas emissions, toxic substances in the environment, all of you be aware, has got very bad effects or adverse consequences on our own health, followed by the ecosystems and the economy as a whole. So given this is the relevance for the topic, we start firstly with what we call as circular economy. So in front of you there's a picture, and this picture is circular, definitely, because the circular economy, as the word suggests. Let's see, starting from the left hand side top, the pink color label which says there is raw material. So you find some small pictures in front of that raw material above that. So raw material, the source of raw material is what? It's basically land, it is air, it is water, or under the sea. These are all our basic raw materials. So these basic raw materials have been extracted from all these sources, and each one in combination or standalone have been combined, what we call as the next step, that is in the purple color, which is design. And these have become the basic staples for the production and the manufacturing of the goods. Once the goods are manufactured, it goes for distribution. We saw already up till now logistics and distribution, that is the title that we are discussing, and it finally reaches the consumer. Please keep in mind, any product in the world in terms of raw material has to reach the consumer in one or the other form. Now, after the consumer consumes it, he either reuses it or takes it for a repair after prolonged use, or he then simply dumps it in the garbage bin. All of us do it. When we drink water, we throw the plastic bottle. After the usage of a mobile phone, if it doesn't work anymore, if the shopkeeper says it doesn't work, he has to dispose it off, we dispose it off. We remove the SIM card and just simply throw it. How many batteries, how many chargers, how many small cellular phones have been found in the garbage bins? All are pollutant. Now, this pollutant in our country, there was no formal system, only the unorganized market. We call them normally the rag pickers. Okay? These rag pickers would collect it and give it at a particular station or a collection point. And this collection was done at a very, very unorganized level. And this is where most of the governments want to focus on. So we require a proper disposal system so that the collection becomes very easy, and after the collection it has to be recycled, and what is not or impossible to recycle can become residual waste. So after recycling, it goes back. Look at the orange color, it heads back to design. That means it is being reused, maybe in the same form or in some other form, etc. But the point is to avoid the earth being destroyed by humans' quest of purchasing, using, or rather calling it a lifestyle and enjoying his life more. So, the above statement that was made way back in 1970 is still very, very relevant. It was done at the American Association for the Advancement of Science by the then president. The statement says, the object of the next industrial revolution is to ensure that there will be no such thing as waste, on the basis that waste is simply some substance that we do not yet have the wit to use. So from now on, students, nobody should call anything as waste or garbage. Why? Because anything that we throw can be reused in one or the other form, and the waste can be prevented to enter the landfill and destroy the environment. So let's see, what does it say? The object of the next industrial revolution. Way back in 1970, they were speaking about industrial revolution. So below the statement, I have put a small patch of industrial revolutions that has happened and what constituted those. Well, what we call as the revolution 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, all are enhancement compared to the previous practices that were employed in the industry for production of the goods and services. So the industry 1.0 was nothing but mechanization. That means before machines, what was happening? Before machine was all manually done. That's why production was very slow. When production was very slow, the products also were not mass distributed. Because the production was very small, it used to reach very few set of people who were very close to the markets, and since there is no mass distribution, many people surrounding or very staying in faraway places could never receive the products. So it is the first industrial revolution happened when machines came into picture. So mechanization gave a fillip to produce more than what was existing before. That is under the manual labor. So mechanization was introduced because the steam power or water power was available. That means these machines were powered and these machines could run so that products could be continuously produced. Having done this with the industry 2.0 emerged because assembly lines could be erected and mass production could be possible because of electric power. When electricity power came, that is, we know Thomas Edison, we know people like Nikola Tesla, the AC current, the DC current, okay. This is the typical time when Industry 2.0 emerged because of mass production. And then comes the digital revolution that happened that we call as Industry 3.0, where automation began in production. That means the goods were already mass produced. So now what happened? They're producing even more, but even more with less quality problems and less breakages, less losses to the company. So automated production system like computers, IT system and robotics came into picture. And now the prediction for the fourth industrial revolution is all about what we call as Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and today we get a fancy name. I think you already have heard the word previously. We call something known as smart warehouse. So now you can link that word here known as smart factory. Okay, the autonomous systems have been embedded so that production is even faster. But if you look at all these industrial revolutionary process, each industrial revolution generated more and more waste because the world leaders or the people who were consuming never thought about how much are we spoiling the environment because of increased consumption. Unfortunately, we calculate the growth of any economy based on consumption purpose. So more the consumption, better the economy, better the country. But unfortunately, we didn't see a part that we are spoiling the environment with this consumption when we throw away the waste. But Industry 3.0 or the future, that is Industry 4.0, has brought about certain solutions to it, and that is what we will discuss in the topic that we will be discussing. Let us now go ahead with what is known as the circular economy. So, a circular economy is nothing but a model of production and consumption. It involves issues related to sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, recycling the existing materials, that is the existing products. Well, when I say products, it can be finished products or it can be an industrial products. When I say finished products, I am directly referring to consumer products, or it can be a finished industrial products. So, and products as long as possible. So look at the words here: repair, refurbish, recycle, and reverse logistics. This is where the title emerges from. So the circular economy aims to achieve carbon neutral, sustainable environment and a toxic free environment. So what does the circular economy preach or convey to the factories is they should focus more on reducing waste, reducing pollution and making products that create health hazards. And because of this emerging field of thought, there are newer business opportunities. In fact, at an entrepreneur level, there are several startup companies who are trying to start the business with a focus of reducing waste, reducing pollution. And surprisingly, these companies also get funded by financial companies. But as many experts in this area have already communicated, that there is more clarity required to the circular business models, because the person who needs to understand here is not the entrepreneur who starts the business of recycling the waste products, but the company that basically gives him money to start such an operation. This is what we call as finance community, or for a startup we call them venture capitalists or angel investors. Till they understand this thoroughly and the benefits they can bring about, these models will take time to move ahead. And so what is happening is the circular economy initiatives are not getting financed. That's one of the concerns which has been expressed by many experts. Now, let's see what's happening in India. The slide in front of you is the initiative in India towards circular economy. The government of India is very, very proactive in this. They have formulated policy framework for certain types of product. These categories they have listed as end-of-life products, recyclable materials, or waste. Now, the focus areas has been distributed in 11 different forms. First is, we call it as municipal solid waste and liquid waste. Second is the scrap metal, both ferrous and non-ferrous. Third is electronic waste. Fourth is lithium-ion batteries, solar panels, gypsum, toxic and hazardous industrial waste, used oil waste, agriculture waste, tire and rubber, and end-of-life vehicles. And all these 11 areas have been intensely focused on by the government. Now, there are certain new words which most of the students would be exposed to, like end-of-life products. What can be the meaning of that? Or recyclable materials. What is the meaning of that? Or for that matter, what is the municipal solid waste? So, in the next slide, I tried to define it. Let us look into it, because once we are clear in the definition, we'll be clear about what we are trying to understand. So, a recyclable material is those material which may be collected, separated, processed, and returned to the economic mainstream. That is why we say recycle, because it is collected after usage of that product, and then parts of it are separated, and whatever is processable is done, and then it is sold back to the economy. So that is why we call it recyclable material. Next is end of life product. What do you mean by end of life? Of course, end of life is used in technology industry, the IT industry very, very frequently. I am sure all of you by now would have got your mobile phones changed. So for you, the previous mobile was end of life. So that is what typically it means. So let's see the definition here. What does it mean? An end of life product is a product that does not receive any support. Any support from whom? From the producer. That means there is no after sales services. You may not even get spare parts. It may not be repairable at all. Or the company that is capable of repairing, they will not accept it anymore because of various reasons. Either because the existing marketing, support, and other processes are stopped because company doesn't find any revenue streams or any profitability in servicing that, or it is at the end of its useful life. You can't use it anymore. You have to just dispose it off. You may have to dispose it of various reasons. The machine may be working properly. For example, your audio cassette player you might have maintained, but you don't get audio cassettes at all now, right? So that's a typical example. So now we say your audio cassette player has got end of life product, so you need to dispose it. When you need to dispose it, there's no other way to throw it, because nobody wants to collect it in the museum and there's nobody wants to buy it. So that's where it ends its life. The next part is the municipal solid waste. I think you just need to understand here that it is a waste collected by the municipality. That's why the name is municipal solid waste. Or it is disposed at the municipal waste site, and it is including the waste of residential area, industrial, institutional, maybe it's an academic institution, it can be a hospital, it is commercial area, construction or demolition waste, all together is what we call as municipal solid waste. Now we'll focus on what are the benefits of the circular economy. Well, because of the increasing environmental pollution, consumers are getting aware about the consequences of the product waste on the environment. And empirically, it is seen that any company that is conscious about this waste and is trying to prevent that waste in one or the other form, consumers attach themselves with such companies and keep purchasing regularly from them. That means those companies' sales increase. So there's a possibility of developing strong relationship with environmentally conscious brands or companies. So that is one of the key benefits of adopting circular economy. And there is another benefit, however, all companies don't see this as a benefit, but let us see what is that first and why other companies don't see it. There's a development of the secondary market. So when there's something on a secondary market, we should understand what is a primary market. Of course, we have in stock market also primary and secondary. Those are not the same here. Here it means that customers who cannot afford for an expensive mobile phone would always like to buy a second-hand mobile phone of the same brand. That's what the secondary market all about. So secondary market, that means when the product is disposed by the consumer as he is not interested to use, that product is taken, maybe it is refurbished or repaired and sent back to the retail outlet where somebody else, some other customer who likes to buy a product or brand giving him these facilities at a cheaper price, he goes to a market, and that market we call it as secondary market. That means even secondary market has a potential to generate revenue. Now, the problem with companies who make the product and sell it in the primary market, for our understanding sake, they have been quite very neglecting the secondary market, but because they feel that the brand image is spoiled when they sell their product with scratches or damaged or repaired, some loose wires here and there, the product feel, the product quality is deteriorated, and they feel they are spoiling the brand image of their product. So that is why some companies are very reluctant. So now most of these companies used to do what? They used to make waste. So take what? If it's a company, they take raw material, they produce the goods, and then they sell it off to the customer, and the customer uses and wastes it. This, at a consumption level, we take it, we make it, we waste it. Philosophy is changing because these days a lot of focus is happening at the design level where restorative designs or regenerative designs are given more prominence. So that is one of the key benefits where research labs are getting involved and compelled to think about making those products not just based on the utility of the customer, but whether it can be reused, it can be recycled, what products to be used inside, what raw materials should not be used, etc. So circular economy is nothing but talking about resource optimization, recovery of waste, giving the product a second life, and reducing raw material consumption. So all of this is included when a company focuses towards circular economy. So now we end the benefits of the circular economy through understanding the core concept is to improve resource efficiency and prevent valuable materials inside any product from leaking out of the system. That means reaching the landfill and then being crushed or destroyed or being let loose like that on the streets. So the next slide that we go is we'll try to link between our topic, that is reverse logistics, and the circular economy. Well, reverse logistics is a core function of the circular economy. In the circular economy, reverse logistics is nothing but a process of collecting, aggregating products, components or materials at the end of the life. We already defined what is the end of the life for its reuse, recycling and returns. Next part is reverse logistics is a function in the circular economy, as we already stated in the first statement. The objective is to reduce waste to a minimum and rather extend the life of the product so that the product remains in the hands of the consumer either through primary or the secondary market. Now, brands have started to design incentivized return policies. That means companies are intervening in this entire process by not only selling the goods but also becoming a collection centers. So they have something known as a returns policy or a buyback mechanism, which you may insert it in their product packaging. This is actually helping in constructing an effective reverse logistics system in the country. So, having understood what is reverse logistics, let us see what is the definition of it. Well, there are several definitions. We'll go through it one by one. Reverse logistics is a process of planning, implementing and controlling the efficient, cost-effective flow of raw materials, in-process inventory, finished goods and related information from the underlying statement comes here. It is from the point of consumption to the point of origin. It is not from the point of origin, that is, it is not from the manufacturer to consumer. It is from the consumer to the manufacturer or consumer to the retailer. So, consumption to the point of origin for the purpose of recapturing value or proper disposal. So, there is another way to define reverse logistics. Some say it is a reverse supply chain. Now, this is defined as a term referring to logistics management skills and activities. It is also called as reverse distribution, where goods and information flow in the opposite direction than normal logistics. Some people have defined reverse logistics as processes such as remanufacturing, refurbishment, recycling, reuse, and or asset recovery. All these words, whenever you find in a textbook or a magazine or a newspaper, like asset recovery or recycling or refurbishment or remanufacturing, will shortly be defining each one of them. This is a topic related to reverse logistics.
Now let's go through a model of reverse logistics process. The figure in front of you on the left hand side shows that for the process of reverse logistics, following activities has to take place. One is the retrieving of the goods that is used or damaged or broken or not being capable of usage anymore. It can be in any form. Then this goods needs to be transported. After it reaches its destination, maybe a warehouse of a retailer or the manufacturer, it needs to be inspected. And after inspection, these goods are then sorted. And finally, it may be resold, reused, remanufactured, repaired, refurbished, recovered, or any recyclable materials can be extracted from it for future usage, or if nothing is possible, then it needs to be disposed. So, reverse logistics model will give you a clear picture about the entire activities that happens in reverse logistics. Reverse logistics is growing in its importance. It is adopted by a lot of manufacturing firms, and the reason behind is either economic, either this legislative, or pure corporate citizenship, showing responsibility towards the society. So what are the economic benefits or drivers? There is companies seeing both direct and indirect profits related to reverse logistics. They obtain what is known as a green image and a better customer-supplier relationships. Or it can be driven by legislation where governments in many of the countries are establishing rules that is making manufacturer responsible for the disposal of the product at the end of its life. So because in order to keep up with the legal requirements, they are forced by the law to start the process with a separate division or separate department in the company purely focusing on reverse logistics. Now, let's understand reverse logistics, the word with its antonym known as forward logistics. We all know by now what is forward logistics: moving the goods forward from the place of origin to the place of distribution. That means from raw material to end consumers, all the activities like order, packing, dispatching, delivery, product development, material sourcing, manufacturing, and delivery to the consumer is all known as forward logistics. Reverse logistics is exactly the opposite. It is moving products and material back into the supply chain after the delivery. The figure in front of you will give you a very clear picture. If you see the arrows which are not dotted but which are bold, we call this bold arrows, we'll term it as forward logistics, and the dotted arrows as reverse logistics. On the top you see suppliers to factory is a bold arrow, from factory to distributor wholesaler is again a bold arrow, followed by stores or consumers. Now let us come down in the figure and see the dotted lines. It starts from the right hand side. It starts from store consumers. The dotted line talks about it can be defective or it can be seasonal returns, etc. And finally it extends to fixing or refurbishing it, and then you can either sell it as new. Then again you see an arrow which is in the bold, that is it reaches the regular channel, or it can be removed and disposed. So, or sent for recycling. So this will give you a very good insight and clarity about how reverse logistic process flows. Now, in order for reverse logistics to be successful, every company must be able to handle the product that is returned either by the retailer or by the customer properly. And for that we need to analyze what is the meaning of returns management. Returns management is nothing but a process where goods that are returned are physically managed. It's a very important process in e-commerce business, especially. Now, there are certain processes in returns management that we need to discuss here. It consists of returns, reverse logistics, gatekeeping, and avoidance. Well, we all know what is reverse logistics. It remains the same here. The definition doesn't change. But there are some new words known as returns. I think the name itself will suggest to you what is the meaning of returns. But here we'll try to categorize what is returns. There are two different ways to categorize it in the literature. That is what we'll go through it. Followed by we'll understand what is gatekeeping. And finally what is avoidance. Returns are categorized as consumer returns, marketing returns, asset returns, product recalls, environmental returns. This is just one category of it. The next slide will be the second category. So we'll go through what is the first category. What do you mean by consumer returns? Consumer returns are when you as a person purchase the product maybe from an e-commerce site, are unhappy because it carries defects, you don't like the color, or what was displayed on the web, the goods were not actually looking like that when you received it, so you return. That is known as consumer return. There is something else known as marketing returns. That is, marketing returns happen when the goods are not sellable. From where? From a retailer or from a distributor. So when a retailer finds that certain products, certain brands are not selling, he informs the company to take it back, and these are known as marketing returns. It can be due to any reason. Maybe it's seasonality or because of some quality issues, etc. There are certain asset returns. Asset returns are quite mandatory. For example, after you use your gas cylinder, you need to give back the cylinder because the cylinders are reused. So this is known as asset returns, where company itself insists that the products are returned. Followed by product recalls. Well, you might have heard in many newspaper way decades before Toyota had to recall all the Toyota cars because of a faulty brake pedal. So these are known as product recalls, when the entire product is recalled because some or the other part of the product is malfunctioning, which can affect the brand image or which can be very dangerous. There may be legal repercussions for that. For that time, company issues product recalls. So their product returned due to safety or quality issues. And lastly, we have something known as environmental returns. Look at each of those A to E titles, and each one is so mutually exclusive that they don't overlap each other. That's why it's very important to know the categorization of returns. The environmental returns consist of products that pose environmental hazards, and well, the company may not have observed certain legal compliance or regulatory compliances for which after the goods were sent off in the market, they need to get it back. Now that is one category of returns. Then we have Brito and Decker's categorization, who have separated the returns in terms of manufacturing returns, distribution returns, and market returns. Well, what is the meaning of manufacturing returns? These are related to execution of production process like surplus raw material return, some quality control issues crop up at the QC department or QC lab, the product gets returned. Well, production leftovers, machines, we cannot have any control on it. Minimum machine production happens and product may not be required by the customer. Well, these are known as leftovers. Don't call it excess production. These are leftovers and that needs to be returned. And there are certain byproducts. During production of any product, during the process, the company gets an output from a machine which they never intended to produce, and these are known as byproduct. So this can also be known as manufacturing return. Next comes as distribution returns. These are related to the distribution of production to potential customers. That includes product recalls, business to business, commercial returns. There's certain stock adjustment that needs to be carried out. And lastly, we have what is known as market returns. Basically, these are business to consumer, reimbursements, warranties like service returns, end of use or end of life return. When the product no more can be used by the customer, they have a policy for returns and the customer returns the product. So these are two different categorization of returns. Now we'll go to the next part of the returns management process. This is reverse logistics. We all know the definition of that, so we'll not spend time more on that. It's a process of moving goods from the destination, the final destination, for the purpose of capturing value or disposal. This is an interesting topic known as gatekeeping. So what do you mean by gatekeeping? Gatekeeping is, as the word suggests, as soon as the goods return, it needs to be scrutinized before taking inside the warehouse by either retailer or the manufacturer. So it is to scrutinize and screen the return merchandise and decide which returns company can accept or which they are unable to handle. This is known as gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is a very important activity in returns management. Next, lastly, is your returns avoidance. Avoidance is activity where the development of the product itself should be done in such a way that returns requests are minimized. Well, that is possible only when there's an improvement in the quality and company aims to get zero defects and product is consistent each time, each batch when they produce it, and company can improvise upon the previous reasons why it got returned and can bring about changes in the product. And now we'll be looking into the various activities of reverse supply chain, and this has been listed in front of you. The defective, damaged or not required goods are returned to the supplier for credit or disposal. The goods, when it is received, are either remanufactured, they are refurbished, reconditioned, repaired, recycled, and or reused. So, in the coming slides, we'll be looking into these terminologies and the importance of this. So, we'll first take up remanufacturing. What is remanufacturing? Well, it's a process of recapturing the value added to the material when a product was first manufactured. So, first, it is not just looking at the definition, it is understanding the definition that matters. We are recapturing the value when it was first manufactured. That means remanufacturing is all about adding the value to the product which pre-existed before it was returned by the customer. So how beautiful the definition is. There are various other names in remanufacturing. We can see here like repetitive manufacturing. Some do call it asset recovery and some call it inverse manufacturing. All three terminologies mean the same as remanufacturing. Now there are different forms of remanufacturing. Rebuilding is a form of remanufacturing, recharging, retreading or overhaul. Well, when we talk about rebuilding, we're talking about maybe small vehicular parts, not the vehicle as a whole. So when certain parts or a ceiling fan, okay, when we are doing the rebuilding, we are just doing a part of that big product and not the product as a whole. That is known as rebuilding. Recharging is maybe we take a printer and we recharge the laser toner. So that we call it as recharging. Retreading is taking a tire and changing or extending the life of the tire by retreading it. And overall is normally a word which is nothing but remanufacturing used in aerospace industries. So all are forms of remanufacturings, and in each of the forms of the remanufacturing, we are recapturing the value that was added to the material when it was manufactured first. So for a remanufacturing process to be done properly, there are various steps here. The 7 steps have been listed by Sundin in his literature. And first step is collection of core. So remanufacturing involves focusing on core. What do you mean by core here? It is that component that has to be retained throughout the remanufacturing process. So every company that is remanufacturing their product, either rebuilding or retreading, must be able to identify which component forms the core. It is an engineering process. Next is inspection and identification of faults, where the problem has happened and which place it can be restored. Then we dismantle it, or disassembly of the whole product has to be done. Cleaning should be done of all the parts that are disassembled, and now starts the reconditioning of the parts and maybe replacement with new parts wherever required, followed by the disassembled product should be reassembled, and then testing process has to be carried out. Well, the process of remanufacturing steps was just indicative, and it is not possible for following the same steps exactly for all the products in its varying forms of remanufacturing. However, as I told you, it is indicative. Now we will look into the other activities in reverse supply chain, namely reconditioning, repairs, recycling and reuse. So we'll start with what is reconditioning. Reconditioning happens when it is restoring a product functionality to as new or almost as new condition. But this answer is insufficient if we don't look at the second line. It may not come with a warranty. So, although the product is functioning as much as a new product and in a new condition, nobody is prepared to give you warranty. Either the garage owner who reconditions your scooter or the factory is not prepared to give you warranty. That means it can break down again. Next part is repair. In repair, it makes a broken product operational again. So, well, in reconditioning, this is not true. But look at the difference between a reconditioning and repair. In repair, the process of repairing does not involve analysis of why the product broke down. Well, the product has broken down, it gets repaired. That means the root cause of the problem is not analyzed. Again, for this reason, warranty on repair will only apply for the repair and not the whole item. That means it can again break down. These definitions are very crucial because we may use it very casually without knowing the meaning or difference between one and the other. Lastly, we call our activity of reverse logistics, which is recycling. A recycling is getting a product into its raw material form. This form of raw material can be used in some other future manufacturing process. That is very important. That is what we call as recycle. It can be reused in other form, not the product's original form. So the term recycled is used by legitimate manufacturers also to describe a product that may meet the minimum manufacturing standards. So lastly, we use the word reuse. Reuse is happening when the product retains the problem it acquired and that has not been repaired, but it is being used with the problem in the product. So these are the different activities of reverse supply chain. Once again, it constitutes of remanufacturing, reconditioning, repair, recycling and reuse. Now, reverse logistics has been mandated by the government. Certain manufacturers are forced upon to implement legally. Some companies are doing as a part of their social responsibility towards the society and their key stakeholders like suppliers, customers, the general public. But it has not been without hiccups or without problems. Many companies are facing problems and we'll see what are those challenges that the companies are facing to understand. However, over a period of time, definitely these challenges will be reduced and more companies will start adopting the process of extending the product life and preventing it from being thrown in the landfills. So the first of the challenges, companies are very hesitant to sell their products in the secondary market because of their brand values. Let's imagine a beautiful iPhone which you have bought. After 10 years of usage, you may want to upgrade it or you may want to dispose it because you want to buy an alternative. You got a better mobile phone with you. Now when this mobile is given back, it goes to a shop. That after using for so long, it may have scratches which cannot be removed or reconditioned. Someone else has to buy it. So when the person buys it, the image of that brand no more remains as is. That's what companies worry about. They say that when it is sold to the secondary market legitimately, please understand the word here is legitimately. We going and buying in some odd shops here and there who is trying to sell you a gimmick or a gizmo and telling that I got this mobile and it's very cheap because it's used, you can buy it at half the price. We are not talking about those things. We are talking about Apple selling old used mobile. In such cases, brand image gets eroded. Companies are mainly worried about that, and normally these companies are consumer products companies. And nextly, most products are not designed for reverse logistics, or they may require more time to understand how those products can be inculcated into the process of remanufacturing or reconditioning or recycling. There is limited information available to determine if returned products can be reused or should be recycled. Now, how to decide whether you need to recondition it or reuse it or recycle it or refurbish it? Well, that's a calculated decision a company can take, and there is no thumb rules up till now for that. The design of the produce must be such that it should be easily taken apart to be repaired. Well, this is a very crucial point, because the key challenges happen when the products are made by the company for the primary market. At that point of time, the company needs to rethink how the product after its useful life can be reused. So this is quite a very futuristic thought. Well, some products can be used for so long that the designer of the product would have retired from his job. So we all know this. So some products, especially these gadgets, they have a very short life, maybe 10 years or 15 years. So for these products, it is wise to think about how to manufacture them for the primary market so that the product efficiency, effectiveness is there in the product as well as the brand image is retained. And after it gets disposed, it can be reused or recycled. Now, tracking the profitability of reverse logistics has been very difficult. There is no clear model about if the company that is manufacturing gets involved into the process of reverse logistics, what is the cost repercussions. They can only see how investments increase, how expenses increase, but can they really attribute those expenses with the monies they make when they resell it? After of course losing the brand image. These things are not clear. That's why we say profitability issues are still very hazy. Now, cost of shipping the products back may be sometimes prohibitive. Yes, that means some products are returned, but after we reassemble them, after reconditioning, to send them back, it will be so expensive that the transportation cost itself will eat up all the, if at all, if there are any margins for those products. And separate logistic flows means investment in separate physical facilities and systems. So company needs to invest in something for which they are not sure about the returns on investment. This is one of the biggest challenge. Secondly, as I told you in the beginning of the course, many financial companies who fund business operations, whether it's a startup or whether they provide working capital to different companies or for purchase of fixed assets, they are very reluctant to fund a reverse logistics process because they really don't know how this model works and where are the profits, whether they can recover their money. So these are the issues that is very important at this moment of time. However, many companies have taken the initiative and are progressing so that one fine day a proper clear structure for reverse logistics, process flows and accounting matrices are established. Now lastly, we'll look into the reverse logistics in e-commerce as I begin my course in reverse logistics by talking about how e-commerce has really filled the returns world. So how many products get returned has increased in manifolds through e-commerce because the ease of returning the products. That means during physical retail, the returns were not as high compared to digital commerce. So in e-commerce, reverse logistics refers to the product return process and it has increased exponentially. Well, we are seeing two different categorization in returns management. But for e-commerce, we normally look at goods returns are caused by maybe a wrong product being shipped to him, or it doesn't fit their personality. See, e-commerce sells a lot of products like even garments or makeup or cosmetics, which looks very nice on the screen, but sometimes when customer purchases it and it lands in his hands, he gets disappointed because it may not fit his personality or his expectations. So the product customer received doesn't match what was seen in the website, and customer lastly finds that the product is very poor in quality or its functionalities. So firms see a better opportunity to expand their customer base for they offer to take care of product returns. That means when companies are sending the goods through e-commerce, they feel that it is always better to always indicate how easy it is for the customer to return, because based on that incentive, customers will start buying their product. These are all different marketing principles which has been adopted to sell more and more goods through e-commerce. And some companies are even offering faster reverse pickup. So that is what is being designed in many of the e-commerce companies. So with this last slide, we will wind up the topic related to reverse logistics. So with this, we also finished the unit 4, which is warehouse and transportation, where we started with the warehousing part, then we finished the transportation. This was followed by e-logistics, electronic logistics, and finally reverse logistics. So these are 4 main elements of unit 4, and now we'll move on to the next unit, that is unit 5. Thank you.